close community. We are supposed to be a good community. But before I get into that subject, I just want to let you know something that you've already seen. I've announced the advisory council from now on because, of course, I don't think that I'm the smartest, the most intelligent person on the face of the earth, and I don't think that all my ideas are the best, or that I'm just God-given gift to everyone, that I know everything for everyone and in every situation. Advisory council is always there to indeed it's made up of individuals who are trustworthy, who are dedicated to service, and people who have some experience in life or rich spiritual experience, so that they could, give some proper counseling and a proper judgment about things. In that way, by announcing it, I have also proven yet once again the lie being spread about Hope of Israel, Worldwide Church of God, that it has no Philadelphian-style government. Well, on the contrary, my dear friends, very much on the contrary, we are treading on the footsteps of our predecessor, the man whom we inherited, and we inherited so much knowledge, wisdom, and everything else from him, from Herbert Armstrong. And Herbert Armstrong used to have an advisory council, I think, and also there were board of trustees for the Ambassador College and all kinds of various boards of people who were trustworthy and were there to make the work, to help the work, to inspire the work, and to basically facilitate the work of God around the world. Again, Mr. Armstrong was the one who loved to delegate various duties. As far as I remember from various testimonies, he was a man who would ask usually everyone, from cook to driver to anybody, about their opinions. He loved to communicate. He was very communicative. He would communicate with people. He was very open-minded. And I remember his announcement when he said when a lady called him or sent him a message when he was on the radio back in those days, and she said to him, well, how could you claim to proclaim the whole gospel when 1/3 of the Bible you do not preach? What is that 1/3 of the Bible? He asked, well, it is about the identity of the house of Israel, she said. It's about the prophecies in the Bible. So he said, really, when he looked it up, it was 1/3 of the Bible, and he didn't really preach it. So he was open-minded. He repented of that, and as you know, here we are. So he was a man very communicative, very open-minded, very, very approachable person. He loved to communicate with people and hear their opinion. I think I'm the same. I love to communicate with people. I love to hear your input. I love to hear where you come from. I love to hear what the problems you might be faced with. I love to hear everything that is relevant, because this is the work of God on a worldwide scale. That's why we're Hope of Israel, Worldwide Church of God, because God scattered Israel to all the nations as well. So therefore, naming the advisory council was, I felt, a good move. I didn't have to do it, really, but again, I thought to give yet another blow to the falsities that some people spread about us. And they spread it about us because they're obviously afraid. Sorry, I didn't check. Wait a second. So Mr. Armstrong was a very communicative person, and I wanted to give a blow once again to these unfounded and stupid accusation of those who don't really know us, but they're obviously afraid of us. I wanted to give a blow to that we don't have a Philadelphian structure of governance, and therefore we can not be a Philadelphian remnant. Well, I'm very sorry to inform them that we all want to be a Philadelphian remnant. We'll do all our best to be a Philadelphian remnant, and now the Hope of Israel does have an advisory council, just like Mr. Armstrong, the man whom God used to do his work and to start the Philadelphia era in the last century, which lasted from 1933 to 1986 to his death. We are having now the advisory council based basically on the way how he structured it, led by God, how he structured the governance in the Church of God. There was one thing that in my last inaugural speech I forgot to mention, and the Serbian congregation wanted me to mention it, and I'll mention it to you. Speaking of those who claim to be having Philadelphian governance. Let me just tell you that the Serbian members, on their own, they've discovered, for example, that in our former church affiliation, a person who is in charge for Africa had 4 Facebook profiles. In each profile, there was a different year of his birth. In one profile with 74, in another profile will be something else. So what kind of an evangelist, you have to ask yourself, what kind of an honest and true evangelist and a true man of God would have 4 Facebook accounts? Similar later, we discovered when this group with those 27 or so congregations that came rushing to us and trying to convince Terry and I that they're just so dedicated and devoted now to the hope of Israel. Oh, we're not suckers, and the flatteries will not win us. And we are very, very, very alert when it comes to Kenya. Of course, those were 27 Kenyan. Then we discovered, of course, that the leader whom they wanted also had 2 Facebook profiles, or and that's what people sadly do. Why would somebody have multiple profiles? Well, obviously it will be only somebody who wants to scam you, or somebody who, and mind you, 4 profiles in the case of the famous evangelist, whose name I don't need to tell you, you know what it is, with different years of birth. Since he was caught also in an adulterous affair, and on a site that is used for adulteries, I guess perhaps he used different years, perhaps for those purposes. You never know. But in any case, a person with four accounts, different accounts, obviously something is wrong with that person, and that person already is certainly not doing something that is right, and that person certainly, dear friends, is disqualified from being in any proper governance. But that's just a thing that Serbian congregation discovered by itself and wanted me to tell you that as well. And I forgot last Sabbath, as I gave my inaugural speech. It was unusually long, it's true, because I have no notes. I had no notes, and I was when I was delivering that speech, and I was going to address all of you sincerely from the heart, the way that I think is the best. So yes, it lasted 4 hours, but I would just appreciate if you could not perhaps listen it all at once, but you can just listen it one by one, at certain different times. I would appreciate if you would hear it, because I've done my best to address some burning issues, and I've done my best to respond to the very unfounded accusations. Obviously, there is a fear from Hope of Israel, but anyway. By the way, with those 27 congregations, we have cut off and severed all of our connections, because we caught the main man trying to control how and what we do in the country of Malawi. Now, Terry Nelson sometimes sends some of his personal funds to those people, which is his choice. That's his choice, and there is nothing wrong with that, because country of Malawi has been very, very open-hearted to us. The government of Malawi considers us to be true Christians. The government of Malawi has been very thankful to us, and we have now completely reformed all that was there. People are now having regular tithing, so they already have some funds that they can count on in their future activities. And we want to do the same in Kenya. Now, since this happened in Kenya, and Daniel is here from Tanzania, I want to inform both Daniel and all of you that I have made a decision. Isn't that a Philadelphian way of ruling? Fine, it is. But I'm not a dictator. I make decisions hopefully based on justice and truth, not based on my own preference of this, that, and the other. I've named our representative to be John Ovak. John Ovak is a very decent, well-educated, well-mannered man who is a family person. John Ovak did not build any church building in Africa. He's got about 6 others with whom he gets on regular basis on the Sabbath. He never asked for money. He planted a garden to be for his children and his wife and himself. He planted a garden so that he would resolve the hunger issue. The only thing that he asked me if I could provide some seeds that he could not find on the Kenyan market, which is fine. And Terry Nelson will go to Africa very soon, so hopefully Terry Nelson will bring some seeds with him, or will find or provide means for John to get it. So he asked for the right thing. John Novak also was ordained first a deacon, later a minister. In fact, John Novak used to be overseeing churches in Tanzania and Kenya. Which exactly churches, I don't know. Don't ask me that. You'll ask that John Novak when John Novak is among us, or when you get in touch with him. John Novak is a man who in 2017, when I returned to Serbia, alerted me to the fact that Evan Socheng and his son Bradox actually participated in Kenyan elections, and the same offense they repeated in 2022, for which we have gathered all the proofs. And fine, somebody's going to tell them, or they're going to hear from this. Fine, we have all the proofs about the claims that we have made about certain people. So we did not make any unfounded accusation against the ministers or against the servants of the congregations. We have proven and backed up all of our knowledge with appropriate documents. All those documents were basically dismissed by Bob Thiel as something irrelevant, as something that as a tale-bearing, as this, that, and the other. So fine, that's his choice, and we're not going to be wasting our time anymore with scammers and those in Kenya who have done great damage to the work of God anyway. So with John Novak, we have John Novak and 6 people. Also, there is a Common Faith Academy, as it is called, by some people, and there is a Church of God International, Robert, I can't remember now his last name, who is in Kenya, and in cooperation with some people in America and Australia. The man from Australia came in touch with me, got in touch and asked me about he asked me about my experiences in Africa, because he read in Church of God News that I was in Africa. I was very honest about him, and he said that my testimony has helped him even resolve. This board of directors and this Common Faith Academy has as a goal to educate the Kenyan leaders in the basic biblical doctrines, and that's what that academy would serve for. Originally, as I'm informed, both Terry and I were contacted by the man from Australia, Tom Kaeli. Tom Kaeli is basically part of those board of the directors, and he cooperates with this man Robert from CGI in Kenya. The common idea is to root out all of those scammers and all of those bad churches. The idea also is that all who are genuine churches of God, since the Kenyan law is being changed, that all of them, they could possibly be registered as a Church of God network, and then they will be certified to operate in Kenya. Why is the Kenyan government changing its laws, its religious laws? Because somebody explained to me, it was John Novak, that there was an idiot, one of the idiots. It's incredible how much idiocy and stupidity can be found in one nation, but Kenya is really a case in point. It's really a exceptional case that you just stop and you just wonder what in the world is happening there. Somebody under the pretext of Christianity and Christian religion, somebody, not a Church of God leader, but somebody from whatever religion, that somebody lured the believers into a jungle and poisoned them, again under the guise of religion. So Kenya, again, it just reminds me of what happened in Guyana back in the last century. I can't remember Jim Jones, right? Jim Jones, what he did. Anyway, this happened recently in Kenya, and the Kenyan government was very upset and alerted. So the Kenyan government decided to change the rules, and therefore Kenyan government decided to issue certificate only to those people who have clean hands, good kind of morale, and people who are theologically educated. Now, John Novak, I went through Ambassador College, but I didn't finish it because the apostasy came in 1995 when I was in my 3rd year. And we asked Tom Kaeli if we could, I said if Terry could go through that course, as well as John Novak, as well as myself. Tom said that's okay. So we'll see if we could all, because Terry is our man who is coordinating things in Africa. So in case that we need to have a certificate, if some of us are in Kenya and that John is in Kenya, that would be secured. However, I was informed by this Common Faith Academy that originally CCOG leaders were supposed to be involved in that program, but the leaders of that academy had a Zoom meeting, in which they decided, I'm informed, that they are not going to involve CCOG anymore because Bob Thiel is a prophet and he made some wrong prophecies. I'm not sure what wrong prophecies. I have to tell you, I never knew really what was wrong in his prophetic work, and I don't care. But that is how I was informed. So that means that CCOG is already excluded from that future Church of God network that will be certified and registered with the Kenyan government. And since Evans doesn't have any education anyway, theological education, God knows what will only happen to them. But that's their problem. It's not ours. As for us, we were told that we can go through that process, through that school. And then that Robert man from Kenya asked me for John Ovak's contact details. He wanted to get in touch with John, which is okay. John was kind of a bit upset. Oh, but brother, I said, John, just calm down. Calm down. There is nothing wrong. I said, John, we are not politicians. Terry and I, we are your brethren. And therefore, since we are your brethren, we are not going to be kind of doing anything wrong. I explained to him, look, this is noble. You would need to have a certificate anyway because you're in Kenya, so there is nothing you can lose. Plus, there have been, of course, various other individuals who have been now attacking John Ovak and trying to instill lack of confidence, that we have no confidence in John Ovak. They've been trying to work on Terry. They keep forgetting that Terry is not a sucker. They just cannot get that once for all. With me, they know what it is. I told them, I'm here, the head of the Hope of Israel, and I'm going to make decisions, and they can only, that they have nothing to do with that. And I told them that, they've already lost credibility with many people, and that I'm not going to be influenced by whatever their cries and whatever their words would be. I was very clear with that, brethren, and I'm still clear with that. But they keep thinking wrongly that Terry is kind of softer, so perhaps, they could work on Terry. That's their wrong, that's their deception, because Terry is very steady, and Terry and I share the same principles, and therefore nobody can make Terry a sucker. We have learned rich lessons from CCOG, from all the failures that CCOG made in Africa, and thus creating a monster which they have to now, lull their child, which Bob Thiel has to lull their child Frankenstein that he created in Kenya, and sadly keeps financing it. That's his choice. We warned, we asked, we said what we had witnessed, we presented all the evidence we had. That's about it. We have done our duties. And once we, exhausted those things, then Terry said, I have to tell to the church. But the church, of course, installed various censorship on him, so he went to that not the most flattering side band, but that's okay. Look, friends, people on the band, they might have wrong attitude or whatever, but they were obviously abused by the hierarchical churches, and I also and we have to respect that. They were, who knows what kind of abuse they've experienced. As we have experienced abuse and false accusations here, we don't know what the others experienced in the old WCG, in all these various other churches of God, whose hierarchies are very often very abusive anyway, and prone to lying, as we know. And therefore, since we don't know what those people's experiences are, we're not going to judge them. But band was it's a worldwide site that has access to, all the people have access to that, so people can get informed about the things that CCOG will censor us on, and that's okay. I'm trying to be very moderate in my posts there. If I try sometimes, and I appealed since my first very involvement, I said, please, just if you could not speak too much evil of Bob Thiel, especially his wife, especially his child David, who has a Down syndrome. So but I cannot. People keep forgetting one thing, and that's the whole problem. Brethren, I cannot be a police who can control what people can say and will not say. When we were in that CCOG forum, some people kind of basically felt that I should have done this, that, and the other. Brethren, I cannot control you. I'm not here to control your life. I'm here to be helper of your joy. I cannot control your life. I cannot control. How could I know what are you doing in your homes? What are you doing? And if you want to say something that is wrong, how can I prevent you? I'm not a policeman that can prevent you. That's why we have the judge. The judge above us is Jesus Christ. We have the judge. We have the mediator between us and God, again, Jesus Christ. And therefore, that's all that we need to know. I cannot prevent somebody from saying something. If somebody is determined to do something wrong, there's nothing I can do about it. Was I able to prevent Bob Thiel from making mistakes, constant mistakes in Africa? No, I wasn't. Terry wasn't. So please just don't look at me as if, CCOG members, incredible. They've tried to send, as I told you, all the messages to our members here in Serbia. And I told you already, members in Serbia, brethren, are not little sheep and dumb sheep that listen to Sasha. Members in Serbia have their own mind. They've got their own determination. And I just mentioned to you, they themselves, by their own initiative, found out that the famous evangelist in Africa has 4 Facebook accounts with different years on them, years of his birth. They've discovered it. I had no clue about it. Which means, but they, some of these people think that, they think that they're just my little minions, so they try to say. And there is one thing that the church members in Serbia all told me, all unanimously, those people worship men. They worship Bob Thiel. They're obsessed with Bob Thiel. Wrong, brethren. None of you must be obsessed with me or with Terry or with anybody else. Stop trusting in men. The middle verse in the Bible says, "Cursed is the one who relies upon a man." These people, the church members tell me here in Serbia, they just count to consider whatever I hear from Bob Thiel, whatever he says, whatever, they're just obsessed with him, they just worship him. And that's understandable because many of those people have never been affiliated earlier with the Church of God. They've got no idea about our history the last 30 years and so on and so forth. But you must never worship a man. And I'll be very unhappy if I hear that some of you would do it. Be that me or be that somebody else. It's wrong, brethren. We are all followers of Christ, our mediator between us and God of Israel, whom we are all to worship. And I was very much, I have to say, last week, as I was giving you I referred to that person in a message, but I was really amazed to read that one of our members heard that I, from a CCOG member yet, that I have made not ridiculous, but the mocking posts about CCOG, which is clearly evident that I have no love. Brethren, I really challenge everybody. If saying the truth is mocking, I was fine. I've told you the truth, and Terry and I and Andre and I and Randy, we have just told you the truth with our experience we all had. If telling the truth is mocking posts, fine. But I'm not the one. I'm the last one who likes to mock people. In fact, we could. People on the band, yes, people on the band do it. I've noticed that. But again, it's their choice, brethren. I cannot prevent them from saying that. I cannot prevent them from calling Bob Thiel egoistical, from telling that he just doesn't listen to anybody else, from telling that he's calling him mockingly savior of Africa and 100 Caucasians. That's what people just have their freedom of expression to say whatever, however wrong it is, but I did not participate in that. I only intervened on that site if I had to say something perhaps correct, something and so on. And once again, I told everybody else, because there was a speculation, oh, perhaps Randy was the one who influenced formation of the Hope of Israel. No, Randy was not the one. Randy was the one with me in 2018, as we thought, well, because Randy said, your messages are so good, they should be heard more widely. He said to me, what can we do? I thought, well, I said radio would be the best, or some kind of a radio. I said, I don't want to have any video stuff because I'm sick and tired of TV and obsession with video things. All of our world is obsessed with visual. Have you noticed that? I don't want it, I said. I want to be in a radio style, so can we have perhaps a YouTube channel where we can post those messages? A radio would be the best. And really, in 2018, here comes the radio. Radio, how can we name the radio? I said Hope of Israel Worldwide. There it was. And Randy just implemented that, and we were shocked positively from the first month of the radio being in operation, including the YouTube channel Hope of Israel Worldwide. We were shocked that from month after month after month, the increase in statistics, the outreach were amazing. Last night there were people listening to our radio in Israel, Latvia, and Slovenia. Now I challenge you to tell me, when in the world did you last heard that anything in those three countries related to the biblical history preached by the Church of God reached people in Israel, Latvia, and Slovenia? Last night as we chatted, it was Friday night, we had 3 listeners, or 3 or more listeners in those 3 countries, brethren. So it was amazing. It was always amazed us. One month it would be the leading country for listening was East Europe. It was Romania and so on. The other month it would be Sierra Leone in Africa. The other month it was all of a sudden somebody showed up from Taiwan. The other month, oh look, we had somebody listened to us in Iceland, Reykjavik being the capital. The other month, capital of Albania, Tirana. Somebody listens, I don't know, somebody listened for how many hours, it doesn't matter. Brethren, I'm not boasting, I'm just telling you the truth. And I don't want to mock anyone at any time. I'm not that kind of person. I was mocked when I was in this world. I was mocked in school. I was mocked by my own father. I was mocked by all kinds of people. And I know how awful that is, so I didn't mock anybody. But obviously, certain person whose name, certain person who is now doing a radio broadcast because he has a very nice voice. He was by the way, I suggested him once to Bob Thiel, and I said, he has a nice voice. He was also involved with music and stuff. Yes, that person is there. That person wrote to one of our members in Serbia. There is a clear evidence that I have no love because I've made mocking posts about CCOG. Rubbish. He has just shown to me that he has no discernment at all, and he has shown to me again the problem that some people think that the minister or the elder's duty is. Brethren, my duty is not to control your life. My duty is to be helper of your joy. If you approach me to ask me what the Bible says about something, my duty is to hear you. My duty is to give you certain advice if I have it. If I don't, I can ask the advisory council. If we don't, we can all pray about something. We're not all-knowing, almighty. And let alone, I'm not a policeman who can police what people write, what people think, and what people write on internet, or even on that in the past on the CCOG forum when they wrote all kinds of stupid heresies and rubbish. Anyway, so me, and I'm in a very unenviable position, I have to tell you, because I never thought that I would have to be, but what could we do? We faced various problems in our former affiliation, and people looked up to me as an elder because, they looked up to me to make a resolution. Now, I don't know what resolution you would make, but I knew one thing, that I could not be in association with witchcraft practitioners and those who consult witches. I could not, brethren, because it's a curse. And I don't want you and your children to be cursed. I don't want us to be cursed here in Serbia. So my decision was that we're going to leave. If something does not change, we're going to leave. And we left. And that was my decision. It was one-man decision, if you want. For those who think that Philadelphia government is one-man show. No, it's not. Mr. Armstrong was never a one-man show. Mr. Armstrong was a very sharing individual. Mr. Armstrong liked to delegate the duties, and Mr. Armstrong would communicate with people of all walks of life. So now, with having advisory council, we can, as Terry, I think Terry said, made a comment, yes, the work of God will be mighty. It will be mighty, yes. In the advisory council, I've given on this group in Skype, I've given you explanation why I chose those particular individuals. I've made sure to choose people who are service oriented, people who are not afraid to sacrifice for the sake of God's work, people who have proven to me that they're honest, truthful, people who are extraordinarily zealous, like Andrea Nelson is, and I've chosen those 7 people. One lady is among them. We would have more ladies, but anyway, originally we had Teresa Juarez, but she decided that this was not fellowship for her. Okay, not because something wrong happened to her, but she just said she prayed and she decided she should stay where she is. Okay, we honor that, of course. The only lady there is our music star. It is Sharon Pass, a wonderful example of a lady. And I tell you, and all those people who are also Jamie Stoneham, who has shown his amazing dedication, his amazing, what's the word for that? His amazing understanding of the prophecies and so on, who was very zealous even before his baptism, and after his baptism he talked to me several times, and I could just see how his thinking matures, how his thinking is very selfless and so on. And I'm happy. I was the one, yes, I'm the one who ordered to the treasurer. In the former affiliation we didn't have a treasurer. Do you realize that, brethren? Do you think about it? It was my order to the treasurer that various incomes that we had, little that we had, that we sent to Australia, so that we would not allow Jamie to go bankrupt, not with his own doing, but because his former car was having problems, and the life in Australia, once the nation of once a country of happy people, the nation of Australia is sinking deeper and deeper, brethren. The prices of food are amazing. It's a crime against humanity. The prices of housing is terrible. They don't have enough housing anyway. The government decided recently to raise whatever. Thanks to all these landlords can now raise the rent to incredible heights. Jamie is a tenant, so am I, and I know what kind of anguish that is. And you know, I expect all over this Anglo-Saxon world the same anguish will come. How we'll do with that, I don't know. I keep praying that all of us here in Serbia and elsewhere will be able to rescue you, and we will do our best, brethren. We will not let you starve to death or whatever. But we understand the beast is coming up. The 666 system is coming up. We'll face who knows how many other things, but anyway. With the advisory council, I'll be making all the best decisions that I can in the interest of all the church members. That's what I'm committed to do. That's what I want to do. And one thing that I want to see is reversal of this further fragmentation and scattering and division of God's people. Enough. That's why I'm so happy that all those various churches in Kenya with various leaders who might be going through the school from that Common Faith Academy, they'll be having perhaps one unified organization, in a sense, umbrella organization, through which they will be certified with the Kenyan government. And I explained to John Ovak. John seemed to be so upset all of a sudden. I said to John, first of all, because, you know, he keeps fearing he's being attacked now by all these various other scammers, and he now feels, I don't know. John, I said, first of all, nobody can take your position. I appointed you as our representative in Africa, and not in Africa, but in Kenya. One day he might be even for Africa, because he does have the qualities of a very good leader. He's a very pleasant fellow, and I had very, 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 very good experiences with him. And I knew that the moment I appoint him, I knew that all those scammers will be terribly upset, because he knows them very well. Among other things, he revealed to me how they go to internet cafe and search online for various churches that are not present in Kenya, and then they're trying to scam them and use them for money. Just one of their manipulations, just for all of you in the West to hear about it. And that you do not think that we, no, I don't have any particular pick on Kenya. I'm just saying that what's happening in Kenya and all the things happening in Kenya are so amazing that you can just stay totally taken by surprise that kind of frame of mind even exists. The frame of mind that is capable of all kind of tricks and stuff, trying to trick us. But no. Again, they've forgotten yet that Terry is not a sucker, and Terry is not another. As I said to Bob, I said, Bob, not to Bob, to John Ovek, I said, John, the era of Bob Thiel is over. We're not suckers, and nobody can hear. We trust you. If something you detect that it is wrong with all of that, you'll tell us, and we can just pull out. But we trust you. We are not distrustful. We are not politicians. Because he keeps writing, oh, may God bless his work. May God keep us faithful to the kingdom. May God. He writes the things that are just absolutely fine and in accordance with God's word. But his experience is so bad that he feels like that somebody may just deceive us about him, and we will say, John, don't worry about that. Because I told him that this man in Kenya who runs that, among other things, the Common Academy thing, that he wants to talk to him and get in touch directly with him. And John all of a sudden, we don't want somebody to manipulate us. We don't want John. Nobody can manipulate us. We are not suckers. The era of Bob Thiel and his way of governance, as he sees it, is over. We trust you, and because I trust you, I have confidence in you. If you've discovered something is wrong there, don't worry, we'll just pull out, and nobody can change my mind about you, except you yourself, and everything is fine. He also cried to me and Terry how all of these others are just telling this, that. I said, John, it is expected, John. You're better than them. You're a nice, educated, well-mannered man with wonderful qualities. I tell you, brethren, he has a qualities even that I could see him being a representative of whole of Africa one of these days. But that's my opinion. It doesn't mean that that's what God wants. So we'll just wait for God's will to be, displayed to us. And I said, it's expected that they just hate you. And I said, I can't spare you from that, John. What lies they talk about me? What should Terry say? Terry was declared an enemy of God's work. Oh, really? Andre was told that he cannot be a possibly Philadelphian, and so on. And I can just keep now going on and on, tell you about all the lies they're telling. Fine, that's their choice. But I said, John, I can't spare you from those. It's expected that they would hate you, persecute you, and ask and speak all kinds of malignant words about you. It is expected, John. You have to endure. That's part of your walk of life, and that's what it is. And so in Kenya, don't worry, not everything is lost. We do have a representative for Kenya named John Ovek, and we have a man who has good experience with Tanzania, with Kenya. He's the honest person as far as I know. He's not trying to use us. He even told me once, oh, perhaps you want to use me to get registered. I said, no, John, we don't want to use you. We are not Satan who uses people and discards them. We are just God's people, and we want to go on with you, marching to the kingdom. And we want to have people in Kenya and in Africa that we can trust. And that's the greatest challenge that I had in Kenya and Terry had in Kenya, was that we did not know whom we can trust. And this even man from Australia, Tom Coeli, who is in charge of that academy and part of that movement to root out scammers in Kenya, root out from that common organization they're going to register. Tom Coeli wrote to me, well, when you say it will be frustrated, it's an understatement. I said, I know. I know it's an understatement because I said I don't know how, with what words can I use to explain to you how these people operate, what they're capable of doing just to get money. And, you know, anyway. So I said, I don't know, but I said, all that I know, all that I knew, I told you. He phoned Terry Nelson. They had about 40 minutes of conversation. And so anyway, he could, you know, he could know that we are true. The rain, thankfully, has started in Serbia, brethren. We were having a heat wave which killed several people in the region. Not the heat, well, the heat wave more or less, but then there came a storm all of a sudden, and this colder air mixed with the hotter air. So in the region, in Slovenia and Croatia, several people died because the storm came and the trees fell over and stuff like that. Thankfully, in my town here, it's only rain without much lightning. I could hear them in the background, but not that bad. The rain is coming because we had a horrible heat with incredible things happening to us. Our summers are getting hotter. The temperatures are not what we in Europe are used to, so it's a great challenge to stay, you know, to stay safe. Let the trial, my trial. Now let me tell you what the trial I have, for example, which I don't think any of you may have it, and you may think, oh, just to illustrate to you the range of trials people may have that you don't even think about. My refrigerator is too small. I have a very old, very old refrigerator that was old and being in a cellar of my friends, and then they said, well, you know, it's an old refrigerator, but it works, you know, and you don't have refrigerators, so let's have this one. I do, but it's too small. And not all the food that I have can stay there. And because of the terribly hot days, some of the food for me just went rotten. And since my cats that I have, they're carnivores, some of the meat that I couldn't fit into the refrigerator also got rotten. So I found, and even some food that was in the refrigerator is so old that even that food that stayed there went kind of bad anyway. Which is very sad. But that's my trial, for example. You do not even know what kind of trials can come to God's people anyway. So my trial is small refrigerator, you know. Oh yes, there are some bigger ones on sale, but don't ask me how much they cost and all of the other things. In any case, just wanted to give you this kind of introduction, if you wish. And my topic was close community, a defense from drifting, if you don't mind. Because, brethren, this life, as you all know, can be all very overwhelming, and it's so easy to put what we have to do spiritually on hold, or even let it drive out everything we value most. You know, we need to renew our commitment daily to become a living sacrifice, not on a superficial level, but to dig deep down, you know, to uncover those things we must really be overcoming. We cannot do it alone. We need each one for one simple fact: we don't know ourselves. And again, that was one of the reasons why I named the advisory council yesterday. You know, we drift and we take tangents and we can't see it happening in real time. We get caught up inside our own head. Remember, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And finding our way out is next to impossible without some help. We are the easiest person to fool because I've just quoted Jeremiah 79. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And because of this fact, we don't know when we drift. You know, the pools of this world water down our engagement and compromises our commitment to this way of life. And so, as it happens to all of us, we drift. We tend to drift away from God, from what God wants for us. Locked inside of our own heads, we rationalize those things that we should be doing, and consequently we generate thinking that suits our situation, our temperament, or our comfort zone. Everything important in our life, brethren, is uphill. In other words, we have to work at it. You know, a good relationship is uphill. It doesn't just happen. We don't drift into discipline. You know, we don't drift into the fruits of the Spirit, do we? We don't drift into prayer and Bible study. We don't drift into good health and exercise. These things require efforts. The second law of thermodynamics states that in a closed or isolated system, entropy increases over time. That is to say, we tend to go downhill if left to ourselves. We don't get better without input, without outside help. Again, I'm just telling you, that's all reasons why I appointed an advisory council. I'm in touch with all those people anyway. I'm in touch with all of you anyway, with listening to your input anyway. But, you know, now we have a formal advisory council, just the way it was at the time of Mr. Armstrong, so fine. If that was the government of God back in those days, it'll be the proper governance. It can be the proper governance in nowadays. But, you know, my vision of the government of God is that the government of God rules from the top down in love, and that the government of God does it with the best interest on mind for those being governed, no matter where they are, whether they live in Africa or in Asia or in Scandinavia or wherever, or in the Antarctic for that reason, which is, by the way, uninhabited area. So, I'm not against the government of God. I'm just against the stupidities being done under the guise of the government of God. And there were people who were abusing their positions in the past. There are people we have seen recently who just have all kinds of silly ideas and explanations for why they do this, that, and the other. Now, in our council, well, in our advisory council, we do have both deacons in Serbia. We have our treasurer, Randy. We have Sharon, the music star. We have Terry, who has done so much good in Africa, reforming the bad way. I mean, the government of God, which did not instill tithing system in Africa. I am asking you what kind of government of God that is. Brethren, I just want you to use common sense. I constantly keep appealing to church members to use common sense. And you cannot worship a man to the point that you don't see his bad points. And even if he were a prophet, which I don't think he is, but even if he were, the same regulations and rules in the Bible apply to him as they apply to all the other members. And to him perhaps even more, because if God gifted him with that gift, even more applies to him to show by his example those regulations. The example was that we had was haughtiness and pride. And my last warning to that person was that pride comes before the fall, and that's all that I had to say. But his minions from Africa continued to display that pride, first trying to drive a wedge between me and Terry, trying to tell that Terry was such an evil person that I could not trust Terry, and that, you know, how could I believe what's going on in Africa because I heard it from that evil Terry, you know. Of course, it didn't work. And it will not work. So that's what Satan always does, you know. We notice here in Serbia as well. The pressure is there that we just divide up among ourselves, that we start mistrusting one another, and that we would just eventually be scattered, and that this voice that speaks his Serbian language, calling constantly the Serbian nation to repentance, that voice would die, brethren. That's what Satan wants. And again, everything important in our life is uphill. Our commitment can be strengthened. We are better when we are connected to each other. You know, we don't get better without input, without outside help, and any closed system deteriorates over time. The problem we had in the past, among other things, I tried to integrate Africa into the wider community. Never worked, because they never allowed themselves to be integrated into the wider community. They constantly kept ignoring me. Perhaps afraid that I'll discover something that's wrong there. But just by the fact that they were ignoring us and not being there, discovered that something is wrong with them anyway. Stupid as somebody would think otherwise. And then After Terry came back from his second visit, I think, he presented to me all kinds of things. What was wrong? And his son was very cooperative as well. He was very perfectly submitted to the government of God. Because to me as an elder, he would just give me various observations, various things, and I would always tell him, look, you know, do this or do the other and so on, and he did it. And somebody will tell me we don't have a proper Philadelphian governance. Really? What is a proper Philadelphia governance, you know? To send thousands of dollars to a criminal to buy a new car. What was wrong with his old car? I don't know, but a new, better car. And then he goes around and then he says how much money he got. Oh yes, and our friend Forster revealed to me last Sabbath, was it, how he goes around telling people that Hope of Israel is a poor church, don't go there, you know, but you know, Continued Church is a rich church, you're to stay here. I said to Forster, that's beautiful. It's true, we are a poor church, yes indeed we are. Financially we are poor, but I hope with the fruits of the Spirit that will be very much abundant and exceeding. And I said, it's a wonderful reputation. We're poor, so all those scammers who don't care about the truth will not come with us. And all those others who are now boasting how their people are returning to them, I'm like, yes, please, they are. Keep them. They're returning to you because they thought that by flattery and telling us how dedicated they are, how much they are for the hope of Israel, they thought that Terry and I would just fall on our backs, on our knees, and we'll be so happy. No. We don't care about the numbers. We care about the quality, not the quantity. So I'm like, good, let them. They're returning to you. Wonderful. They obviously didn't find any benefits for themselves in Hope of Israel, and they will never find those benefits because we're a poor church after all. But keep them with you. You know, keep them with you because, yeah, sure, you're about the numbers. You don't care about the quality of people. Fine. For years, brethren, I was trying to raise the awareness that we need to find out and check out what those people believe, what are their misconceptions, whether they understand the Bible prophecy, which is the area where they least understand anything, whether they understand about the beast coming up and stuff like that. And I was ignored. Fine. I don't want to be in a association with ignorant people. With ignorant people who, by some reports, don't even know what holidays are in the Bible. I don't want to be with ignorant people who don't understand basic things about the prophecy. You don't have to understand all the details, but basic things you have to understand, brethren. For how can you watch and be vigilant, you know? As Jesus Christ told us, watch and be vigilant. How can you be vigilant if you have no idea what are the basic prophecies in the Bible? Speaking of that, this week the Czech Minister for European Integration announced the need he felt for a federalized Europe, and that it should be called, listen to this one now, United States of Europe. Oh my. Oh my, that rang the bell right away with me. How did it ring the bell? Well, it rang the bell because I remember that somebody in the last century used to say that one of these days this European state will be called the United States of Europe. That man was Herbert Armstrong. How did he know it? Well, obviously there was a revelation from God. Which means that if he knew it and then is showing up to be true, then it means we're on the right track, brethren. That it means we have succeeded the right man. United States of Europe. And you will hear me very often referring to Europe as United States of Europe. In fact, from one of my interviews with Gene Porter, Jamie even found an excerpt, and he recently just excerpted it from and you can hear my voice saying United States of Europe. Brethren, that's one very encouraging. United States of Europe. Now the quest for federalized Europe was already initiated by Germany. France keeps pushing for formation of the European army. And now we have the Czech Minister of European Integration lobbying for the United States of Europe. So I was asked, I'll be asking so many times that understanding of church members in Africa should be checked, and that they should be provided with teachings on the topics that they did not understand. Even though one has to ask himself whether they understand anything, because many of their leaders and they themselves seem to be very carnal. I'm speaking about Kenya. Kenya in particular. Because all the trouble we had came from that country, and all these all from that country or related to that country. Anyway, so fortunately, overcoming in our spiritual life, we have not been called to do it all alone. We were called into ecclesia, into a community, but communities are unpredictable, brethren, and sometimes they get off script. We could see that. But they can also be encouraging and uplifting, The church was never meant to be a country club for people who have it all together, or none of us would be members. No, it is for broken people who have been called by God to a life and to a whole bigger than we are. Each year we celebrate that life and that hope, of course, through God's holidays. Hope, yes, the hope of Israel. Each year we celebrate through God's holidays, which God gave even back to Israel as a sign between himself and his people, and to tell his people to keep them in reminder of what is his plan to save humanity as a whole. Now, getting comfortable with this, that God is building a family, getting comfortable with this has always been an issue for the church, because we like to distance ourselves from people who we feel haven't grown as much as we have, so that nobody might think that we have anything to do, that we're anything like them. But if we could only see ourselves, we would see that we have different but just as deep-seated problems that they appear to have. Brethren, we all drift. So how do we solve this problem? Hebrews chapter 3, beginning verse 12. Hebrews 3:12. See to it, brothers, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. Now, Paul is saying that each and every one of us has the capacity to turn away from the living God, and he's pointing out that we tend to drift away from God. We tend to say no to God. Then he describes a heart issue. The heart that turns away from God begins, it all begins with heart. And it all begins within, in the heart. We begin to drift because of something going on inside of us. It starts small, a temptation, a dissatisfaction, a doubt, a question. Oh, I'm not sure about that anymore. Oh, I'm getting really tired of this. Oh, this is boring. This is what goes on inside our heads, and nobody has access to you unless you let people in, so nobody knows that is, going on, and nobody knows that that is going on in your mind. The only way anyone is going to know about our sinning, unbelieving heart that turns away from God is if we are in a relationship where people have access to us. When we have intimate relationships with others, we pretty well know when something is going on. So if we don't have those kinds of relationships with others, we are going to struggle alone. Verse 13, but encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. The word encourage you find here, or in some translation, means to comfort, appeal to, exhort, urge, strongly entreat, or beg, with the idea of strengthening one another. One of the main themes of the book of Hebrews, is indeed to strengthen our faith and commitment to avoid the deceitfulness of sin. The author of Hebrews understands how Satan works, so in our defense against Satan's deceitfulness, we are asked to encourage each other. It says even daily. It means ongoing, not once in a lifetime, because, brethren, this is about relationships. You have access to people and they have access to you. And this is a key point. You have to have a relationship with someone to do this, because you don't walk up to a stranger and begin, and begin to exhort them. No, that doesn't feel like concern. That feels like judgment. And God adds in Scripture, as long as it is called today. So he's placing some urgency on this because the time is short. He's saying that we live in an age where we need this daily. Satan is always at work, and this physical life tugs at us. It overwhelms us. It discourages us. It deceives us. So we need to be in each other's lives. Now he's saying, I want you to be in each other's lives. I want you to know what is going on. To notice when they drift, when they begin to drift. I want you to notice when they don't show up, when their attitude goes sour. I want you to be in their lives enough, or to the extent that you can say something, No one should ever have to struggle alone with something nobody knows about. We need to make sure that someone has access and permission to say something to us. And how different might your life have been if you were in a relationship with people who had permission to say, hey, I've noticed something. Are you okay? Well, then the author writes why. He says, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. So here is what we have to avoid: a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God, or a mind that is hardened by sin's deceitfulness. A person that cannot be told, a person that cannot learn. Brethren, sin deceives us. It is not just an event. It resides inside us, and it deceives us, and we have to understand this and its uncomfortable implications. We talk ourselves into stupid thinking, and we don't even know we are doing it. It seems totally reasonable, because it's coming from inside of us. We're not alone in there. There is a battle going on here with an adversary that seeks to destroy us. We need outside help. Sometimes we think, oh, I deserve it. I'm forced to do this. Who would blame me for doing this? And I would be happier if only, and whatever it is. And we start to believe the stupid things we say to ourselves. We plant seeds that grow into thoughts and actions that turn us away from the living God. The drift begins within us. So Paul is saying, guess what? The best defense is not you. The best defense in all of us together. What have you began to tell yourselves? What have you begun to tell yourselves these days? What is the thought that is growing within you? Every time they say that, every time you see her, every time you think, I'm tired of this, I don't think I believe that anymore. Why am I doing this? Most of us don't tell anyone else what we are thinking, because they would think we have lost our minds. That is the most self-destructive thing I can think of, brethren. You're hurting yourself. You're not thinking straight. The power of this is when we get these things out, we say them to another person or persons, and they begin to repeat them back. We begin to see it differently. And yes, they might think, you're crazy, but they might keep you from crazy. They may save your life. What if someone had been there for you years ago? What if you had given access or permission to, what did I say? Access or permission to someone years ago? What might you have avoided? This is the power of community. So Paul is saying that if you will allow someone in while you are in your life, while it is still a seed, while it is still in your heart, it will keep you from sinning and keep you from drifting indeed. We serve each other as guardians, I guess. One of the reasons we hesitate to do this, of course, it is because we don't like being judged or gossiped about. If we are judging others, it is because we don't really understand Satan. We don't really understand sin, and we forget what was highlighted earlier in the story of Cain and Abel. God told Cain in Genesis 4, he told him, sin lies at the door. And sin lies at the door. That applies to each and every one of us. We are in no position to judge. Where someone else is crazy in one area, I'm crazy in another. Then he completes the thought in verse 14 with us. We have come to share in Christ, if indeed we hold our spiritual conviction firmly till the very ground. If we told unto our original conviction, we share a common goal, a common commitment by not drifting into deceit and unbelief, well, it is that little thought that begins within that causes us to drift. It is that little thing that makes its way into our marriage, that makes its way into our beliefs, that makes its way into finances, that makes its way into our relationship with God. And if it is left unchecked, then anyway, if it is left unchecked, it leads to unbelief out there. It leads to sin, brethren. It leads to a hardened heart. Now, one area of drift can undermine everything. One thing can lead you to the place where you don't believe anything. When we begin to do the things we should not be doing, when we decide it's time for divorce, when you meet the girl you shouldn't be dating, when anyway, one area of drift can undermine everything, brethren. When we begin to do things that we shouldn't be doing, when we decide it's time for divorce, when you meet the girl you shouldn't be dating, when you stop observing the holidays, it's not because you don't believe in God anymore, but after you just justify the things you do, now you begin to not believe in God and everything He says in His Word. But it starts off as a little thing, a little thought that has just now impacted everything you believed, everything you originally committed to. And the way you stop, the way you avoid being tricked by the deceitfulness of sin is being in a relationship where someone has the permission to speak to you. Satan is working on us continually. Hebrews is asking us to be exhorted by one another daily because Satan is working on us. If he can get us thinking in the wrong direction, it has the potential to undermine everything, to take us away from God. We lose what we have come to share in Christ bit by bit. We never intended to give the whole thing up, and we won't if we are praying and paying attention to the little things. And the way we pay attention to the little things is by allowing someone in. If we don't pay attention to the little things, then they will cost us everything. We're being instructed to see one another on a regular basis so that none of us is tricked by the sin that dwells within us and thereby drift away from the faith. We're told to get into each other's business if you want. Of course, this is scary because do you recoil when someone talks to your children or talks to you even? Do you feel like they have no business? Are you afraid of feedback? It is scary because we are so good at doing this in a self-righteous way with each other and not so adept at doing it in hey, I'm just like you kind of a way. We have all watched someone else make a bad decision. It is so obvious. We cannot see it in ourselves, as Jeremiah said. We fool ourselves. But the point here in Hebrews is that there is someone here, right now, who can easily see what you can't see in your own life. And you will either give them access or you will not give them access. So to avoid the drift, we have to keep in mind that to avoid the drift, someone must have access, the permission to appeal, exhort, implore, and if need, to beg. Well, who has access to you, brethren? Who is there to keep you from drifting? Who has permission to say something to you? If overcoming is our goal in an effort to become more like Christ and to preach the gospel, then learning has to be our focus. We need to be investing in the lives of others, and they need to be investing in us. In a truly functional community, we can be vulnerable and still know that we belong. You see, that's the power of a healthy community. Too often we see people making decisions out of their disconnectedness. Disconnected people are lacking something, They are either not giving or receiving. But either way, they are not functioning in reality. Disconnected people are not connecting the dots in the way they should. They have difficulty seeing the consequences of their own behavior. They only see what they want to see. They frame things in ways that support their one-sided view of the world they inhabit. We need to work with each other, brethren. It's not just old people cautioning young people either. They often can spot the things that we have grown very comfortable with. In our society, our focus is often on the lone hero who did something great. But when you pull the curtain back, there was someone there who helped to make it possible, Our success is either improved or diminished by the people in our community, brethren. We are not taught community in our society. We should be learning it in our families, but they too few actually function at this level. This is uncomfortable. It's mutual submission in action. Mutual submission is the most influential relational dynamic there is. And it is attractive because it's inclusive, It says you matter. If we are to get this right, we all have to get uncomfortable. We are not the same, but we can get past that by focusing on, as it says in verse 14, what we have come to share in common, our original conviction. Now, are we lifting up those around us? Are we investing in their success? Overcoming is not about trying to control our reactions, brethren. It's not about trying to change what we say to another person, but it's actually having different kinds of things come out of our mouth because we are different. We have become different, so our interactions are different. This kind of growth happens in good relationships. Without good relationship, we usually fail, brethren. We need God's Holy Spirit to give us the courage that we need to do this. The stakes are too high and the time is too short. Now, our will, reason, and character are not enough to defeat the self. Everyone needs help from the outside to exhort us, to advise us, to encourage us, to support and inspire us along the way. We cannot afford to become and to be closed systems, brethren. We can't overcome the way we need to without waging a campaign against the self that includes input from God through His Holy Spirit and those whom He has chosen to rally around us in this most important calling indeed. So we owe it to each other to ask God to help us to be the kind of people that support growth in others, the kind of people that encourages others, the kind of people that look out for each other.